Hello everyone, my name is Jeremy. I'm one of the bird keepers here at the Houston Zoo, and I'm here today to introduce you to a couple of our new members of our family at the Houston Zoo. We have our Chilean Flamingos right here, and we have two chicks. They just hatched. We have the little one right here is named Orbit, and the bigger one I think just snuck around the corner a little, and that one's name is Astro. So it's been about 6 years since we've had flamingos that were raised here at the zoo. Sitting on a nest right now. So these are Chilean flamingos. They're found in South America along the Andean mountains. It takes usually about 28 days to hatch an egg. You can see that there's some eggs off here. The flamingos are kind of standing up and kind of checking out their eggs a little bit, and hopefully those will be hatching somewhat soon, but it usually takes about 28 days for them to hatch. The parents will then kind of take care of the chick, feed the chicks, and they'll sort of follow the parents along. You can see actually out in the water here, there's a big group of flamingos, and Astro is kind of swimming in the water right now. We can get a little bit closer in a little bit to see them. And yeah, it's pretty exciting that we get to have these. Now, a question that we're often asked is, why aren't they pink? Well, the chicks, they actually start out white. They're like little fluffy cotton balls. And then they start slowly turning gray. And then after about a year or so, they get their full gray feathers, but it takes usually about 4 years for them to be fully pink. They'll kind of start turning a couple years before, but they get that pink color from their food. It's the keratin that's in shrimp and algae and stuff like that, and we actually give them some of that food here that they eat, and it turns them pink. But the flamingos that are that are parent raising these chicks, they actually start to turn a little bit white, because what happens, the food that they give is called crop milk. It's milk that is from a crop. It's almost like a mini stomach, and that is almost blood red. And what they do, they take all that keratin out of their own feathers and put that in and mix that in with some nutrients, and that is what they feed the chick. So the parents actually will start turning a little white. So if you come here to the Houston Zoo and see these birds, you can usually pick out the parents after a little bit, because they're a little bit lighter color than the rest of the flamingos. So you can actually see them at the Houston Zoo there. If you come in the front entrance, there's a little area called Flamingo Terrace, and they're right behind there. They have a big exhibit that they're in, and there's some feeding pools and stuff like that, but they really like to nest on this island. Flamingos, they like to nest in muddy spots, lots of marsh and stuff like that, and they build their nests using the mud from the ground. And we wet this island down, it becomes all soupy and muddy, and they pull up dirt to build these big mounds that they then lay an egg on top of. And it's almost like cement, but it's all made of dirt. You can see Astro out there. Maybe get a closer look at Astro. See if we can get a little bit more. You can see Astro is growing, hanging out with the older flamingos now. Now you can kind of see that Astro's beak is actually straight. Most flamingo beaks, they're all curved. Both Astro and Orbit, when they're young, their beaks are straight. So what happens, if they're reaching up to their parents and their parents are reaching down to them, if they have a curved beak, they would not be able to eat their food very well. So when they're little, they have this very straight beak so they can get food from their parents. But later on, flamingos, they filter feed. So they stick their beak straight down in the water and eat stuff off the bottom of the water, so they have to be curved. So eventually, as the chicks grow, their beak will actually start curving also, and that's a normal thing, and that allows them to eat when they're little, and then able to like feed when they're adults later on. So we have 24 male birds and 27 female birds in here. So we have a total of 51 adults, and there are 2 chicks. So we have a total of 53 birds out here. All right, so we have a question here. Stephanie asks, what is your favorite part of working with the flamingos? Well, I really like interacting and seeing how they act here at the zoo and how that compares to how they act in the wild. And they actually do a lot of behaviors here at the zoo that they would normally do. So during breeding season, they do a thing called marching. They have this big group, kind of like this flock of flamingos, but they all kind of flock together. They walk one way and then they turn around just all of a sudden and they walk another way, and their heads are what we call flagging, where they flip back and forth, and that's just a breeding display. So being able to see that here, just like what would happen out in the wild. And so I like that interaction. I like to see that part of it. It's also fun coming in and being able to help these parents raise chicks and all of that. Okay, so we have a question of why are they pink, and that is from the keratin that is in their food. So the shrimp, and we actually feed them krill here, and some of the algae has keratin in it. It's similar to the stuff that's in your fingernails, keratin, and that actually turns their feathers pink. Now, if they didn't have that, the flamingos would be much more white color, but that turns them there. But yeah, anyone's online, go ahead and shout out answers, type them in, and we'll try to answer them for you. But, another thing that's a little unusual, so some birds, they're the same size. Males and females look the same, but in flamingos, the males are bigger and the females are smaller. In other types of birds, it's a little bit opposite, but they also share responsibility for taking care of the chicks. They both incubate, so if one gets off to get some food, the other parent will sit on the nest. They'll both feed the chick, help raise the chick. They'll both defend their little nest territory. So yeah, if you're just joining us, my name is Jeremy. I'm one of the keepers here at the Houston Zoo. I work with the flamingos, and we're introducing you all to the newest additions to our flock. It's Astro is the older baby flamingo, and we have Orbit who's running around here somewhere, and showing you all off to all of these. We also have several eggs out here that potentially might be hatching in the next couple of days. We have a couple of birds sitting on nests here that maybe in a day or so there might be one hatching. Obviously there's the old saying, never count your chickens before they hatch. Some of these may not hatch, but we'll let them kind of do their thing. You can see they're kind of paired up also. These two birds right in front, they're a breeding pair. They're kind of following each other, and oftentimes they'll interact like that, and they'll stay together during the breeding season, and then they'll just be more of a flock in the non-breeding season when they're not raising chicks. Any questions? Okay, there's a question from Sarah asking how many different types of flamingos are there? There are 7 species, and they live in different parts of the world. So there is the American/Caribbean species that are found in the Caribbean islands. There's the Chileans that we have here that are found in South America. There's also some species that are found in Africa, lesser flamingos, Jameses, and there's a few other species, but there's 7 total. And each of those flamingo species, they look a little bit different. The American and Caribbean are a little bit taller than the Chileans that we have here, but they're a little bit more bright pink, almost orange color. The Chileans are a little bit lighter in color, a little bit smaller. The lessers are very small. They're the small species, and they're often in flocks of 1 million. And it's a little bit interesting to see how they look a little different. Their beaks are a little bit different, but they all look like that flamingo shape that we're all familiar with. I think Orbit is flapping his wings a little bit, Astro's flapping his wings over there a little bit, and standing on one leg, kind of practicing on how to be a flamingo. They often do that, not so much because they have to, it's just restful for them. They have very long legs, kind of gets tiring to stand there, and we even do that sometimes. We'll shift from one leg to the other. Flamingos are doing that just to rest and kind of conserve their body heat and all of that, and tucking that foot up in there. So another thing you might notice is on all of the birds, they have little bracelets. We call them bands, and that's the way we can identify which bird is which, so we can make sure that we can know the genetics of the parents. And if one bird is starting to nest, we'll know who that bird is, and we can keep track of that in our records. All of our animals at the zoo have ID numbers, and so those bands match up with an ID number that we have. Okay, Emily is asking, what is your favorite flamingo fact? Well, I like how they get their pink color. One thing is flamingos can fly. Flamingos can also swim very well. So we have a deep part of the pool, and they'll sometimes just go for a little swim, and they have webbed feet, and that helps them kind of swim along. Yeah, they're very interesting little birds, very different than, like, say, ducks or birds of prey out there. All right, Joshua is asking, why is this the first time they have hatched in 6 years? Well, a couple of reasons. One, we have a lot of new exhibits. So we have, just to the left of us over here is our new wetlands exhibit. So the eagles and the cranes. Right behind us is our savanna aviary. That's part of the new Pantanal exhibit. We have Flamingo Terrace on another side of us that used to have our tropical bird house. And we're building Galapagos right now. So there's a lot of construction around. So when there was some heavy construction, we actually moved the birds out of this exhibit and moved them to one of our hoof run exhibits to just keep them calm, so they wouldn't be too stressed. And because of that move, there was a couple of years there that there wasn't any breeding. And sometimes it just, for whatever reason, seasonally, they just may not breed. For whatever reason, our flamingos here tend to nest later on in the year and starting to get a little cold, so we want to time it to make sure everything's right. We've also done things different this year. Every year we go through and evaluate what has happened in the past to make sure we can give the best care. So this year we've actually switched up their food a little bit, gave them a slightly different type of food. We've also started flooding our island. So in the past we'd put water on it and let the rain go, but we're actively starting to flood the island. We can raise the level of the pool, flood the island, and then drop the level back down, and that has allowed them to build more nests and have more mud to build with. And there's also a little less disturbance of us going out on the island and wetting the water down wetting the ground down so much. So we're kind of a little bit more hands off. We're able to adjust the pool and the habitat to allow them to breed, but we're not actually going in with them as much. So those things, and there's just times that they feel like they need to breed. So that's part of the reason why we've had that. Okay, Stephanie is asking, what pink birds fly around Houston? Okay, so a common misconception. There's another type of bird that is found in Houston that is also pink. It's called the Rosette Spoonbill. We actually have some in our Savannah aviary right behind the flamingos. There's a couple of Rosette Spoonbills in there, and that's a fairly common coastal bird here in Houston. You can kind of tell the difference. The pink is a little bit different, but they are pink. But with the spoonbills, they actually have a spoonbill shaped beak. So it's kind of long and has like a spatula. The flamingos have a curved beak, so you can kind of tell the difference. They fly a little bit different also. But there has been flamingos along the Texas coast. We have seen them along the Texas coast. They are birds. Birds migrate. They are able to fly, so it is possible that there are flamingos along the Texas coast every once in a while, but most of the time if you see a bird out in the wild, it's probably a spoonbill here in Texas. All right, thanks. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and sharing our flamingos with us. So make sure to stop by the Houston Zoo and see them, and they grow up very quickly, so you might want to come out here sooner rather than later. They'll be right in with that flock in no time. They'll be just little pink flamingos just like everyone else. But thanks for stopping by, and thanks.